We were talking a little bit about a coach who is likely on his way out of the door. It appears in Atlanta and Arthur Smith. There was a comment that was made to, the Georgia Public Broadcasting on Tuesday, where Arthur Blank said the organization, in one quote, was committed to Coach Smith, but then added the Falcons will assess where they're at and go on from there after the season ends. So, but we've already had 3 coach firings this year. It appears that there are going to be a lot of them on the way. How many? We had that report earlier this season from Adam Schefter saying that there could be as many as 10. What would, if I said a total for you at over or under 9 coaching changes this year, would you go over?
I might go under that, just because I think when you break it down, right? I mean, the question in New Orleans remains to be seen. I don't know where that's going to go, because they're playing for it. New Orleans and Tampa are wild cards. I think to get to 9, you're anticipating one of those to open, right? I don't think people felt Atlanta would open, because a lot of people thought Atlanta was going to win the division, but it seems to me to be trending in that direction. Could it be saved? Perhaps. I don't think so. So, I think when you look at that, we know Washington's going to open up. That's a foregone conclusion. We know that there's going to be a discussion in New England. I don't know if we know the answer of what that's going to bring, but to get to 9, you need some surprises. And I think the only surprise place to me that I see is now Atlanta. And could it be Green Bay? I don't think so, but could Green Bay, because of the way they've collapsed lately?
So I was wondering with the NFC South, because I feel like there was high expectations not only for Atlanta, but for the Saints as well. If they don't win the division, could that be one? Or even so, and I know you're going to hate this, and I hate it too on the surface. It seems like it would be such a crazy thing to say, but I've seen some other conversation floating around about could maybe there be a separation from Mike Tomlin and the Steelers after this, like a mutual parting of ways, similar to kind of the conversations that we're talking about potentially happening in New England after this year, although their situation obviously much more dire with the way things have played out this season.
Yeah, look, it's not – I always tend to look at these coaching changes as what has been the pattern. What is the behavior of the ownership group, right? And I think that they're going to let Mike Tomlin fix the offense. I think Mike Tomlin's already have plans to fix the offense, whether it's bringing Byron Leftwich, who was a former player there, back as his offensive coordinator, who was in Tampa. He comes from the Bruce Arians school, which Mike really likes offensively, because remember, Bruce Arians was there. So my sense of that place there is they're going to let him fix that. I don't think they want to sit out and start looking for another coach, because they know, look, they're not stupid. They know Mike Tomlin would last 10 seconds on the open market.
Oh, yeah.
So, they don't react like that. And they've never reacted like that. I think New England's a little bit different. I think New England is really the argument. Everybody thinks the argument in New England is over, should Belichick, has he lost it, the GM, all that. I think the bigger prevailing argument there is the Crafts probably would like to have their team back. For the most part, they've given Belichick as much control as any head coach in the league. And that's been probably the right thing to do. They've won 6 Super Bowls. They've been in a bunch of them. So how could you argue with that, right? I don't think, but I think now is, people say, well, he's had bad drafts. Okay, he's had bad drafts. How did Rob Gronkowski get there? How did they, did they win 6 Super Bowls with no players? I mean, how did James White show up? Did he just roll on campus? How about Shaq Mason or some of the people that played in the Super Bowl games? I think it's a little bit too far. I think it goes down a road. It's a narrative that's not correct. Could they use help? Certainly. But I think that conversation is different. Tennessee's made it very clear they're not getting rid of Mike Vrabel. Now, they got to get him under contract, but they're not getting rid of him. And so I can't get to 9. I really can't, based on using my logic.
Yeah, Tennessee was the other one, because there were talks, and again, these are just like media people speculating about options they could have, and obviously Patriots fans, I'm sure, would love to have a guy like Mike Vrabel in that room with his ties, but there could be a trade but that doesn't seem like the case. And it seems like Gerard Mayo is the name that everybody assumes will go on and step into that role once Bill Belichick is out. But my question about that is, if you're trying to like rearrange things and have a change in culture, if Gerard Mayo just gets elevated, you're still going to have so many of the other same pieces around him. No? So is it just the letting go of the GM things that Belichick does that would be different in that case, and that would be enough?
Yeah, I think it's a reorganization of structure, right? So I think that, you've had a head coach, everything runs through it. Now you have an opportunity to bring in a young head coach, let him coach the team, hire a general manager, whether it's Matt Groh, they give him the full authority to build the team, and and have Jonathan Kraft, who's the president of the team, have him involved in a lot of these decisions. I think that's the natural train of thought there that can follow down that road. And I can't say that I know that to be happening. I'm just guessing that because, at the end of the day, Mr. Kraft is really smart, and he's got to ask himself, am I better with Gerard Mayo as the head coach than I am with Bill Belichick? Or am I better with Mayo as the head coach in a different structure within my organization? I think that's the question he's asking himself. He's not going to replace Belichick as a coach. He's just not going to. I think Aaron Rodgers made that pretty clear the other day.
Well, and again, I don't think there's anybody that watches the game that says Bill Belichick is not good at coaching football anymore. Look at the things that Patriots defense has done as evidence. It's other things, certainly. And we just had that graphic up on the screen of some of the top NFL assistants around the National Football League right now. Who do you think is going to be the most in demand for a head coaching gig after the season?
Well, I think Ben Johnson's going to get huge money. I think he's going to get huge money. I think he's going to be really there. I think Dan Quinn, if something happens in Seattle, and I'm not suggesting it will, but if something happens where Pete Carroll retires, and there could be one you add that you're not counting on. If Pete retires, I think Dan Quinn's the heir apparent there. I think that happens there. So I think Quinn there. I think Mike McDonald and Raheem Morris and Brian Flores are really attractive candidates. I can't imagine Brian Johnson, based on the Eagle offense, is going to be a contender. And I can't imagine Eric Bieniemy either. I think, to me, there is the media of Eric Bieniemy, and then there's the reality in the league. Is Eric Bieniemy really a head coach? I think there's two conversations. And he went to Washington, and look, I thought that finally, after 14 weeks or 15 weeks, Ron Rivera said, well, I had to protect my quarterback because he's getting them killed. He's getting them killed. His eye level's way down now. So you can call as many pass plays as you want. It doesn't make you a great offensive coach. So I don't see that. Brian Callahan, I don't know how that'll go in an interview, but I think, to me, there's so many teams that want offensive minds that I think certainly he becomes a candidate.
Yeah, and Bieniemy, to your point, he was somebody who, this was a prove-it opportunity for him, and it hasn't panned out that way. And especially when you throw in the other media reports of the way that his coaching style is not being received particularly well. And whether that's true or not, we're not in the building. I don't know. But those reports have certainly been out there.
Here's what I would say to you. Why haven't they fired Rivera and promoted Bieniemy?
That's what I asked earlier in the season, too. Michael, I'm right there with you. It seems like a golden opportunity to let him take over, see what it looks like, right? If you're moving on from Rivera.
There's a reason for that.
Yep.
There's a reason for that. Now, the media might have a different reason, but I'm not sure they're correct. There's a reason for that. And I think there's a reason why you haven't seen or read from the Washington Post or the Times or anywhere within the D.C. area that there hasn't been a movement to make him the head coach. So now you add those two things together, and I'm not look, it's deductive reasoning here. There's a reason why Rivera is still there making horrendous decisions on Sundays. And he's fired everybody else around him.
Lost 5 in a row, 4-10 team. Not great. Real quickly, last 30 seconds. The Chargers, I know, are projected to be around $35 million over the cap next year, but is that still the most attractive job because of the Justin Herbert of it all?
I think it will be. Yeah, I think it will be. They get a new facility in El Segundo. They're going to have facilities. Look, I think the Chargers are probably the team that has to recognize their situation better than anybody. They don't have a fan base that's still in San Diego. They don't have a home field because they left San Diego, and they have to have some credibility. And John Spanos, the owner's son, he came out and talked about, we're going to prove all these people who think we're cheap wrong, right? he's going to go in there and they're going to make it so that if they're interested in the right coach, they're going to go get him.
Yeah, he was asked specifically if the franchise would be willing to spend $20-25 million on a coach. He said, "I can tell you there have been no discussions internally about there being a max, so expected for no limitations there."
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.